Go ahead, you're live. Hello everyone. Welcome to our second live ePMP Now session. I apologize for the delay. We had some tough technical difficulties, but without further delay, let's get going here. I'm Sriram Chaturvedi, otherwise known as Shri. Some of you know me as Cambium Shri if you've been participating in the Cambium community forum at community.cambiumnetworks.com, and I'm an active participant there. Today I'd like to talk about ePMP sync or GPS synchronization on ePMP. GPS synchronization is not a new topic or a new concept. Many of you may already know how it works, what it does, especially on ePMP. I hope that for those folks this acts as a refresher, a quick refresher on that topic. For people who are new to GPS synchronization or synchronization in general, I hope this session gives a quick introduction to the topic. Talking about ePMP sync, ePMP operates in the unlicensed band, 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz band. The biggest challenge with unlicensed band is interference. Just the fact that there are lots of operators operating in this band, as well as consumer devices like Wi-Fi routers operating in this band. So interference is a huge challenge in unlicensed bands. GPS sync helps with that. The biggest challenge for operators is finding a clean channel in an unlicensed band. And once you find that clean channel, the ability to reuse that channel across multiple APs is a huge benefit with synchronization. I'd like to talk about what it is on ePMP, how you configure it on ePMP, and how it helps your network increase capacity and increase spectral efficiency using ePMP. So let's get right into how GPS sync works. There are three main things that ePMP does that helps you synchronize access points, synchronize ePMP access points to obtain higher spectral efficiency. The first thing is ePMP operates in a TDD frame, a time division duplex frame. ePMP a time division duplex frame is basically frames that are sent over the air, and within each frame there is a specific downlink transmission time and a specific uplink transmission time. The green bars here are basically depicting the downlink portion of the frame, and the orange or teal part of the bars here are depicting the uplink portion of the frame, where the SMs are sending data to the AP. This is what we call as a TDD frame. You will see on ePMP that we offer three different fixed downlink and uplink ratios in a fixed frame, 30-70, 50-50, and 75-25. We do offer a flexible frame that is automatically ePMP adjusts the frame size and the ratios, but using flexible, it's not possible to do synchronization. So the fixed ratios are extremely important to use for synchronization. Before I go into the next two items here, I'd like to jump straight into the next slide. When you talked about interference in an unlicensed band, the number one type of interference that causes issues is self-interference. When I talk about self-interference, this is interference from your own devices, one AP interfering with another AP, or the SMs registered to one AP interfering with another AP or its SMs. GPS synchronization or synchronization in general helps you minimize or eliminate that self-interference. So this is basically a picture of multiple APs deployed on a tower, and all these APs are using a TDD frame that I talked about, a fixed frame, where the green bars are the downlink portion of the frame and the teal bars are the uplink portion of the frame. When these access points are not synchronized precisely in time, the transmission of one AP will interfere with the reception of the other AP, and that's self-interference. All of these are your APs. Now, using GPS synchronization, ePMP APs are able to receive timing from GPS satellite systems. And in some of the newer chips, it's able to receive timing from GLONASS satellite systems. It's a common time reference for all the access points, regardless of where it's deployed in your network physically. It could be on the same tower, it could be on different towers, but they're all receiving timing from the same satellite system. This allows the access points to synchronize their frames with each other. And once that's done, all these access points are all transmitting at the same time and receiving at the same time. When this happens, when there's transmission, when there's all transmitting at the same time, no access point is actively receiving, so there is no interference. And when they're all receiving at the same time, no access point is transmitting, so again, there is no interference, or I should say self-interference. And this is the key aspect that reduces, minimizes, eliminates self-interference in your network. Now, this alone is not enough. There are a couple of other things that help in ePMP that helps you with reusing these, reusing channels and reducing self-interference. Another important thing is automatic transmit power control feature that exists in ePMP. This is a feature where the access point controls the transmit power of the SM. This is very important because we don't want the SMs transmitting at whatever power they want. Typically, when there is no automatic transmit power control, our operator tends to set the max TX power for an SM or set the SMs to max TX power. What that does is, regardless of where the SMs are, they're all blasting out at max TX power. An SM that's really close to the access point is coming in at really high signal level at the AP, and SM that's farther away from the AP is coming at a lower signal level. What this does is this raises the noise floor in your network, and this is your own devices raising the noise floor in the network. And this noise is seen by adjacent APs that are co-located on the same tower, or they're seen by APs deployed in a nearby tower. Automatic transmit power control allows the AP to command the SMs to lower or raise their TX power such that all SMs arrive at the same signal level at the AP. This equalizes the energy seen at the AP. And when all your APs on a tower or nearby towers are doing this, that automatically keeps the noise floor down, your self-interference and noise floor down in your network. And that's the second key aspect for synchronization and frequency reuse. The third important aspect is the sector antenna and the front to back ratio of sector antenna. Sector antennas are required to amplify the signal that they're transmitting out in the front of it, and also amplify the signal that it's receiving in the front of it. But all sector antennas have some energy leaving the back of the antenna. It's important that that energy leaving the back of the antenna is way lower than the energy that's leaving the front of the antenna, or the energy received from the front of the antenna. And that's called front to back ratio. ePMP antennas provide at least 30 dB of front to back ratio. In fact, the newer 5 gigahertz sector antenna from Cambium provides 35 dB of front to back ratio. And this number is important. Why is this number important? Because 30 dB of C to I, carrier to interference ratio, is what we need for MCS15 to reliably work. As you know, ePMP uses modulation and coding schemes all the way from MCS1 to MCS15. MCS15 gives you the maximum throughput. So 30 dB of C to I is required for MCS15 to reliably work with ePMP. And it's the same for a lot of other products out there too. 30 dB is extremely important. So front to back, a sector antenna with good front to back ratio is key to be able to synchronize and frequency reuse in your network. So those are the three key aspects. I'd like to talk about how this frequency reuse works. When you're deploying a 360-degree coverage in a tower using sector antennas, a typical deployment is 90 degrees antennas or 4 90 degrees antennas co-located on a tower. Without GPS sync, or without the ability to power control, or without the good front-to-back ratio in sector antennas, an operator is forced to choose different channels. And as you know, an unlicensed channel, like I talked about, is difficult to find free channels, low noise channels to start with, and trying to find 4 different channels can be even worse. With ePMP's frequency reuse capability, you can reuse the same frequency on back-to-back antennas, as depicted in this picture here. And the adjacent pair of APs, they can use a second channel and reuse the channels back to back. So essentially, instead of finding 4 different channels, you're now using 2 channels on the same tower. Another added benefit of doing synchronization is when you're not synchronizing, you need some kind of guard band between the channels. A rule of thumb is if you're not synchronized, the guard band or the channel separation needs to be twice the channel bandwidth used by the access point. So if the access point is using a 20 megahertz channel, the adjacent access point has to be at least 40 megahertz away from this access point, or the guard band has to be 40 megahertz. Now when you synchronize these access points, the guard band requirement reduces to 5 megahertz. That's all you need, regardless of the channel bandwidth used on the AP, whether it's 5 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 20 megahertz, or 40 megahertz, the channel separation required is just 5 megahertz. So therein, you're reducing from 4 channels to 2 channels, and your guard band requirement goes down to twice the channel bandwidth to just 5 megahertz. And that's where your spectral efficiency comes in. So you got frequency reuse as well as spectral efficiency in your network. Now, we talk a lot about doing frequency reuse on a single tower, but then there's always questions about, we don't talk a lot about how do we do this, reuse this concept across the network, neighboring towers. With ePMP synchronization capabilities, you can literally take 4 channels and deploy access points or towers or rooftops throughout your entire network. And that's what this second picture is showing you. So in a particular tower, if you're using an AB frequency reuse method, the neighboring tower can simply use a CD-CD, and this can be repeated throughout your entire network. So using just 4 channels, you can provide, use ePMP and provide service to your entire network coverage area, to your customers, and gain the benefits of ePMP's high reliability, high performance, and capabilities that most of you have seen so far. At this point, I'd like to go right into my radio, ePMP radio. I'd like to talk about some of the parameters that you need to set on ePMP to enable synchronization, and you'll see how simple it is. It's only a few parameters. It's not complicated. It's very simple to do, and I'd like to show you that right now. So I'm switching to my access point here. Let me log back in. So this is an ePMP 1000 access point. It's a GPS access point. I'd like to take a minute here. I get a lot of questions from customers saying, hey, if I want to do synchronization with ePMP, do my SMs have to be GPS capable? And the answer is no. Only your access points need to be able to GPS capable or be able to receive sync from a sync source. The SMs do not have to have GPS capability, do not have to have synchronization capability. Everything is controlled from the access point, and that's all you need. The SMs can be non-GPS radios. So here's a GPS AP, which is an ePMP 1000 AP. All the settings you need to enable synchronization is available on one page, and that page is configuration radio. And I'd like to go through all the configurations here, and there's not a lot. The first thing I'm going to go right down to is, I talked about the downlink and uplink ratio. There is a flexible ratio. We do not support GPS synchronization using flexible ratio. You'll have to use one of the fixed ratios. 75-25 basically means 75% of the time the AP is transmitting on the downlink to the SMs, and 25% of the time the SMs are transmitting data back to the AP. So that's what this is: 75-25, 50-50, and 30-70. So I've chosen for my AP, I've chosen a 50-50 a downlink and uplink ratio, where it's half and half. AP transmits for half the time of the frame, and the SMs transmit for half the time of the frame. Then I'll have to choose the frame size. ePMP supports 2 different frame sizes: 2.5 millisecond frame size and 5 millisecond frame size. It really doesn't matter for the operator which one he chooses, but what is absolutely important is whatever frame size you choose on your AP, you need to use the same frame size on the other APs as well. The frame size have to match. If not, this AP could be still transmitting in a 5 millisecond frame, and if your other AP is set to 2.5 millisecond, it may be receiving, and that's going to cause self-interference. Same thing with the downlink and uplink ratio. They have to match. All your APs need to be running the same downlink and uplink ratio, and that's very key. So those are the first 2 settings that's very important for you to know, to set the same across your APs. The second setting is the actual synchronization source. Let's skip the co-location mode for just a second here. ePMP supports different synchronization sources. The GPS setting is using the onboard GPS. The onboard GPS chip has a patch antenna on it. It's capable of tracking, receiving satellite information and tracking those satellites. So without any extra accessories, the GPS ePMP radio is capable of receiving GPS sync from the satellite system and providing synchronization. But ePMP also supports sync over power using an external sync source or a sync injector. CMMs are very popular. The cluster management module that Cambium sells. The CMM3 were the older ones, and CMM4s are newer ones. We do have CMM5 as well that has come out. ePMP doesn't yet support it, but it's in the plan for us to support CMM5. So CMM are external sync sources which can provide sync to the ePMP GPS access point, and it can take timing off of that to synchronize with other APs. And then last one is internal. Internal is the internal clock of the access point. When you don't have good GPS reception or when you don't have access to a sync source, you can always set it to the internal clock for the ePMP, but with internal setting, it's not possible to synchronize access points. So you will have to use one of these sync sources to synchronize ePMP across your network. This is not really essential, but I'll throw it in there just because it's related to the sync source. When ePMP is set to one of these sync sources, it needs to receive constant sync for it to continue transmitting. When it loses the sync source, the ePMP will shut off its transmitter. This is so that it doesn't cause self-interference with another AP in your network. This is a safety mechanism. Some operators have approached me and saying, well, I don't want the AP to shut down its transmission. I want it to continue transmitting. I'm okay with the self-interference. I'll take a hit in performance rather than dropping my customers. So that's where the sync hold-off timer comes in. When ePMP loses sync, it will still continue transmitting in an unsynchronized fashion with the other APs for the amount of time configured here. By default, it's 30 seconds. You can set it to a maximum of 1 day, 24 hours. We do plan to actually increase this even further in a future software release. So synchronization hold-off timer is something you can use for your AP to continue transmitting even after losing GPS sync from the sync source. So that's one option. So anyway, so the downlink uplink ratio, the frame size, and the synchronization source are very important. There is one last very important parameter that enables you to frequency reuse, and that you simply scroll up. It's called the frequency reuse parameter. The frequency reuse parameter is very important when you're trying to do frequency reuse in back-to-back APs, or even APs on another tower using the same frequency as this tower, right? When you're doing back-to-back APs using the same frequency, one AP must absolutely be set as a front sector, and the back AP has to be set as a back sector. It doesn't matter which one you choose as a front sector or the back sector, but they'll have to have opposite settings. And that's very important. So if I jump back to this picture, here you have two APs using A and A channels, the same channel. One AP has to be set as the front sector, and the other AP has to be set as the back sector. This setting on these APs has nothing to do with the adjacent APs. The adjacent APs are completely independent, again, but the same rule applies. You set one AP to a front sector and the other AP to a back sector. And this is a very key, important setting in ePMP to allow frequency reuse to work. So those are really the four settings that you need: frequency reuse, downlink uplink ratio, frame size, and your sync source. A lot of customers who have used our PMP product, our 450 or Canopy products, ask, is max range required to match, to allow synchronization? No, on ePMP, the max range parameter does not play a role with synchronization or frequency reuse or synchronizing the frames. It is accounted, no matter what you set, it is accounted for in the frame time. So this absolutely does not matter what you set between APs. This is not the case with our PMP products, where max range plays a role in synchronizing the frames there. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the co-location mode. Co-location mode was added because we wanted to allow some of our customers who have been with us for many, many years, who have used our Canopy products, especially the PMP 100 product, which is an FSK radio. They wanted a path to upgrade their FSK network to ePMP, which is an OFDM MIMO-based product. Even though ePMP does not interoperate with PMP 100, we added the ability for ePMP to synchronize with PMP 100, and that's what this is, and that's what co-location mode is. So if you plan to synchronize ePMP with FSK or PMP 100, you have to enable co-location mode for that to work. So that's what that parameter is. So that's it. That's pretty much all the settings that you need to know in order to synchronize. Once you configure a particular AP with all those 4 settings, just repeat those settings on all of your other APs, and there you have your entire network set up properly to synchronize, as long as these APs are receiving sync from a common sync source, whether it's GPS or if it's a CMM or an external third-party sync injector. So that's all you need. I want to talk a little bit more about the front to back, front sector and back sector settings. I want to talk about this because I've gotten a lot of questions from customers about this. This setting is unique to ePMP, so it was expected that I got a lot of questions on this parameter. It's really very simple. Like I already talked about, when you're co-locating back-to-back APs, trying to frequency reuse, you just simply set one as front and the other as back. But the question really is, what about APs in neighboring towers? What should I set them to when I'm trying to reuse frequency? First of all, excuse me. First of all, I discourage customers from reusing frequencies on neighboring towers, especially when the APs are facing each other. But let's say you have some kind of terrain where you're able to do that. It is still recommended that you follow certain rules in terms of setting the front sector and back sector frequency reuse parameter. So for example, here, if you're using an onboard GPS or a CMM4 or a CMM3 consistently across your network, you're not mixing and matching. You could mix and match, that's number 4. You could mix and match the onboard GPS and CMM4, but as long as you're mixing and matching them with CMM3 and you're consistently using the same sync source across your network, 2 APs facing each other using the same frequency, try your best to have opposite settings with the frequency reuse parameter. And this will make sure these 2 APs, when they're synchronized, they are not interfering or self-interfering with each other. The second case is when you're trying to mix and match. It's a little bit different concept. When I say mix and match, it's really between the onboard GPS CMM4 and the CMM3. That's the only special case. And in that case, when you have a tower that is synced using CMM3 and another tower that is synced using onboard GPS or CMM4, the sectors that are facing each other, APs facing each other and using the same frequency, we recommend that you set the same frequency reuse setting. So if one AP is set to a back sector, you want this other AP to be set to a back sector as well. So that's just a special case that you remember. That I want you to remember. CMM3 is again an old sync source solution, and there's plenty of those instances out there. So this is something to keep in mind as you upgrade your network to ePMP from PMP 100 or whatever product you are using. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to quickly recap again. So it's always advised to have a common sync source to the best of your abilities. Maybe simply use the onboard GPS on the AP. It does come with an external GPS antenna. All ePMP GPS radios come with an external GPS antenna in the box, so you can choose to use that antenna. The onboard GPS chip has a patch antenna on it itself, but for some reason, if there's an obstruction where the radio is not able to have have a clear view of the sky, you can connect the external GPS antenna to the radio and move around the magnetic puck around to find a spot where it has clear view of the sky. So that's an option for you. Second thing is the sector antenna. You need to have a sector antenna with good front to back ratio if you want to have effective frequency reuse. Even if you use third party, make sure you have at least 30 dB or more of front to back ratio. Common downlink and uplink fixed ratios across all APs, same frame sizes across all APs. That's very important, which we already talked about. A common control channel. The beauty of ePMP is this is not something you have to worry about. This is already accounted for in ePMP. This goes back to our Canopy products and PMP 450, where we had contention slots that we had to, the customer has to configure and match the frame with other APs in order for them to synchronize. In ePMP, this is not something you have to worry about. It's already taken care of, automatically taken care of. And the last thing is ePMP's automatic transmit power control on the SMs. We give you the option to disable it, but by default, it is enabled, and we definitely want you to use it for frequency reuse and synchronization. Actually, talking about automatic power control, I'd like to switch back to the radio here. And I want to show you the parameter that actually drives this automatic power control. It's again on the same page under configuration radio. It's called the subscriber module target receive level. I have it set to -50 here. What this means is the SMs connected to this AP, no matter where they are, they will try to increase or decrease their power, or the access point will command the SMs to increase or decrease their power such that the SMs signal level hits this target of -50. Again, this is just my lab AP, so we typically recommend, and the default value is -60, just so you can keep the noise floor in your network down. Now, there are circumstances where you have external interference in your network, especially on the channel or adjacent channels that you're trying to use. So some operators may want to increase this to -55 or -50, depending on your network. But -60 is all you need in order to allow MCS 15 to reliably work. It's sufficient enough and comfortably sufficient enough for MCS 15 to work reliably. So that's what this setting is. With that, I hope this was a good refresher for you guys watching this session. GPS synchronization, frequency reuse are concepts that are built into ePMP that helps you grow your network, that helps you scale, that helps you reuse frequency, precious unlicensed frequencies in your network, and elevate your network. And speaking of elevate, we have a promotion going on right now. And the promotion is you buy 4 GPS ePMP APs, and you get 40 ePMP Elevate licenses free. That's right. 4 GPS ePMP APs and 40 ePMP Elevate licenses free. Okay, that's our current promotion. So go get that. All right. That's all I have. I guess we can start the Q&A session if there are any questions. Yeah, I'll switch. I can't see questions. Do you guys see questions? Okay. Okay, I guess there are no questions for today's session. We will post a recording of this session on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, on our community forum. Again, please visit our community forum, community.cambiumnetworks.com. There are a lot of resources on all of our products, and ePMP especially has a lot of resources, knowledge base, customers talking on the forum, helping out each other. It's a very active community, so feel free to visit that and sign up and participate. We'd love to have you there. We have Cambium engineers participating in the forum every day, so please take some time and visit our forum. If there are no questions, thank you for attending this session, and once again, apologize for the delay due to our technical difficulties. We'll get that fixed for next time around. Okay, bye. off air.